I was watching Tucker Carlson's monologue last evening, and I have to say it's one of the best monologues that I've ever seen him do, and that is a very high bar, because his monologue every night is one of the most thoughtful, intelligent, and wise pieces of television out there. And so Tucker makes the argument, and we're going to play the clip here in just a second, that the current revolution that we are living through, which we are living through a revolution, is unlike anything that Americans are used to. Instead of living through a revolution that is the workers or the proletariat against the bourgeoisie, it's the powerful versus the workers. This revolution that we are living through, and make no mistake, we are living through a revolution. It hasn't hit critical mass yet, but if you look carefully and closely, it's there. But this particular moment, which is around the idea of social justice and racial justice, is actually been engineered by people with a very specific agenda. This is not an organic revolution. This is not something that is authentic. Instead, it's as if this was built in a laboratory, as if this was designed by an architect to try and accomplish a goal. What is that goal? Why are so few people talking about it? Well, let's listen to what Tucker Carlson had to say last evening. Play tape.
Now, the first and most obvious question we might have asked at the time, and no one ever asked this, but it's clear, why was a 46-year-old man reduced to passing badly counterfeited $20 bills in a convenience store in the middle of the day? George Floyd was unemployed. Why was he unemployed? How many other people like George Floyd are unemployed, and why? Now, that would have been an interesting conversation. It might have been a fruitful conversation for all of us, but we didn't have it, and we didn't have it by design.
And there's another clip here that Tucker mentions the true roots of the revolution. I don't know if we have that tape as well. Yeah, let's play cut 43. No, the other one. The one that was just there. Yeah.
What hasn't changed at all is the kind of people who go to Yale in the first place. They're rich kids from rich families who plan on staying rich. Not speculation. Here are the numbers. Before COVID, the median family income in the United States was about $65,000 a year. At Yale, it's 3 times that. The median family income of a Yale University student is $192,000 a year. That's the median. At the University of Pennsylvania, it's about $196,000 a year. At Brown University in Providence, it's $204,000.
So Tucker is making the argument that real change, if you're talking about economic change, has been superficial. There's another clip, but I'll just summarize it because we don't have it, which is this. Tucker made a short remark that actually deserves deep and thorough exploration and explanation. He said what makes this current revolution different is that it's the rich, the elite, and the powerful that are trying to pummel the people that have nothing. So when you study the history of revolutions, the ones that we know best, they are typically ones that are bottom up. The French Revolution, for example, inspired by Robespierre or the Jacobins against the French monarchy. The idea of a guillotine, the idea of mob justice. In fact, the Jacobins were so insistent on trying to revolutionize the world around them, they actually recreated time. They went to a 10-day-a-week calendar, and they started over at year 0. That's how committed they were at revolutionizing the status quo of the world around them. They were heavily inspired by Jean-Jacques Rousseau, who, of course, valued the primitive over the civilized, the infant over the adult, and was a harsh critic of the beginning stages of the Enlightenment and Western culture. How about the Russian Revolution? This was also bottom up. The Russian Revolution, of course, led by Vladimir Lenin against the Romanov dynasty, who were running Russia for many generations prior. Vladimir Lenin was a trained Marxist, actually was in prison in Germany, and as one of the tactical moves to end World War I, was released from that prison in Germany, was put on a train to Russia as a way to try to weaken the Eastern Front and revolutionize and bring this communist Marxist idea, which, by the way, was never really tried up until the Russian Revolution, into practice. Bottom up. You ever hear the expression, storming of the Bastille? That was the French Revolution. The idea of challenging the industrial class was the Russian Revolution. Now, by no means am I praising these revolutionary efforts, but they had a common through line. A vocal, charismatic leader embracing a flawed and immoral people-centered ideology was able to build up massive support for a very specific goal. How about the Chinese Revolution, led by Mao Zedong, otherwise known as the Great Leap Forward? Post-World War II, China was a large, heavily populated, poor country with massive inequality. Mao Zedong, almost through a military coup, took power and enacted some of the most aggressive, and still to this day, China lives under most of these efforts, whether it be the implementation of the Red Guard, the Little Red Book, the Mao Code of Ethics. It was almost the complete and total destruction of Chinese culture prior to Mao Zedong. So just a French Revolution. Bottom up, Robespierre, Jacobin, we're going to go after the powerful people. Russian Revolution, we're going to go after the Romanovs. Chinese Revolution, we're going to go after the current military generals that are running the country. How about the Cuban Revolution? Fidel Castro, a communist-trained Soviet military leader, saw massive inequality in Cuba, saw an opportunity after a very, very bitter conflict, took power in Cuba. Bottom up, bottom up, bottom up, bottom up. French, Russian, Chinese, Cuban. Now, of course, the American Revolution was also bottom up. But what made the American Revolution completely and totally different than the Cuban, the Chinese, the Russian, and the French was that the American founders, when they wrote the Declaration of Independence, they're not asking for a takeover of a pre-existing government. They wanted separation to create their own. Big difference. Whereas Robespierre or Lenin, Mao, or Castro, they wanted to actually control the current government. Founding fathers never wanted to actually control the British monarchy. They wanted to create something new. But still, the American founders in the American Revolution were believers in bottom-up change. We are going to get the people convinced of our policies, of our ideas, of our philosophy, and we'll be able to